Friends, welcome into another edition of the Soccer Tejas Podcast. I'm Alex Parra. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of our lives, whether it's morning, noon, or night. You're tuning in, you're listening to at least part of this. We really do appreciate it. Beside me, there you see him, the one and only. I welcome in Victor Araiza. First of all, Victor, good day. How are you? And thanks for joining us.
Doing great. I think, look, we're on the right track now. The Dynamo are going to be MLS Cup champions, and there's plenty of good things to talk about.
Hey, it was a good game, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Let's reel the people in, and then we can let them down easy as the hour goes on.
Victor, a lot to talk about. Clearly, we'll talk about the Houston Dynamo, the start of the MLS season. We will also talk a little bit of World Cup. There's an interesting announcement coming up later this week when it comes to Houston and the legacy of the World Cup in town. We'll talk a little bit about the Dash, focusing heavily on the MLS and the Houston Dynamo. But the World Cup, Victor, is something that is on all of our minds. And unfortunately, there's been some narco violence. I'll define it as that in Mexico in the last couple of days and hours, creating a bit of uncertainty that for some puts the World Cup in jeopardy in cities like Guadalajara. Your thoughts, first of all. It's a shame that this is happening. We can maybe get into the politics of it and maybe the need of it. And everyone may have an opinion. Do we have enough facts? Do we know what's behind it? Certainly I don't. But it's an interesting topic that is at the crossroads, Victor, of reality, of politics, of violence, and of sport.
Yeah, all of the above. And like you said, it's a shame these things continue to happen in Mexico. And, I don't know if there's an end in sight to this vicious cycle. But, strictly to the World Cup, this was always a possibility. I think it was a concern that was brought up by certainly the Mexican media through the last couple of months. Let's remember, Guadalajara is about to host one of the playoff tournaments for FIFA for the Interconfederation playoffs to decide, among the last tickets to the World Cup and complete the field of the 48 teams that are going to compete. That's obviously, we could say in doubt. It's been considered if it's going to continue to be hosted in Guadalajara. Then there's also media worldwide wondering what's going to happen with the World Cup games. Should they be moved? And listen, I can understand there's probably a bit of a shock, right? Because I think sadly for us that we have ties to Mexico, I as a Mexican American, you as I think full-blooded Mexican. I'm not sure.
I'm Mexican American-ish. That's a good question.
There you go.
Hold on. You know what? It's interesting. I'm going to go off on a tangent. I'm a Texan now, by the way, Victor. I've been here since the 80s. I'm a Houstonian and a Texan. Yeah, I was born in Mexico to a mom born in the United States, to a dad born in Mexico. I guess I've been going back and forth my entire life. But when I asked myself
you're Mexican as far as the Mexican Constitution is concerned.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I can run for president in either country or what they want me, but that's my tangent. Anyway, sir, we do have ties, yes.
And what I was going at is, sadly, we've been desensitized to this, right? It seems like it's a typical Saturday, could be a typical Saturday in Mexico. Depending on, again, the politics and what's going on. So, saying that, I think it's also part of the reason why we can probably say that if the World Cup were to be hosted in Mexico still, if nothing changes and everything stays put, I don't think we'd be surprised, right? I think because of all the money that's involved, I think things would find a way to get aligned. And it wouldn't surprise me either if FIFA decides to take the games away, if the U.S. politics to take some of the games. The United States can easily add 3 more host cities or just add the games between these cities that already are hosting in this 2026 World Cup. So, there's certainly a lot of doubts because people are wondering, well, what could happen? But I would think because of all the logistics around it, the tickets, the hotels, people having to plan their trips, obviously this is going to be a decision that has to be announced sooner rather than later.
Victor, I understand the hesitation to say, look, if these situations continue, all of our safety, participants, organizers, fans, may be at risk. I also take a very cynical look at Mexican society, and I know I'm going to get beat up for this, but when the entire or the majority or a large part of society is dependent on this trade, and I'll see it that way. The drug business is just that, a business. It's a huge business, Victor, that trickles down, and I'm going to say this because of corruption to many people that look the other way. You cannot eradicate that by getting rid of one person. That's my personal opinion. So it's going to take time to actually fix it, contain it. But here's what's miraculous, I think, about the World Cup, Victor, that even those forces, even all of those interests, I think for a month can make peace somehow so that this goes forward, because it's still in everyone's interest for it to go forward. Does that make sense? And I know it's a very cynical view, but I really believe that with so many people involved, it's not just, hey, let's take out one guy, let's take out one group, and it's done. It's not that easy from my perspective.
Yeah, I couldn't agree, but I would say, again, there's a lot of money to be made in this tournament. It's the biggest, I would think it's the biggest sports tournament of just one singular sport, right? I'm not counting the Olympics in this. I'm saying just one particular sport. I think it's and that's obviously a sport that has ties to each country in the world. So
yeah.
But again, the powers that be, I mean, again, if the United States politics to take all the games, I could see it coming to the United States. And listen, you could easily add Las Vegas, Charlotte, Minnesota.
Well, let's dream a little bit more. Let's dream a little bit more. Let's speculate a little bit more. Hypotheticals here. Victor, would that mean more games in Houston so that we in Texas benefit from that? So, hey, so sorry, Guadalajara, so sorry, Mexico, but more for us? Is that a possibility? Anything is possible. Would that scenario present itself? And
sadly, the way things are going, I don't know if Houston's going to be in that scenario. We can't even get a team to have their base camp here, at least not for the time being. And Kansas City seems to be getting three big kahunas with England, the Netherlands, and Argentina.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, that would be great if we can get more games. But listen, I think it's a mess, right? Because again, there's a lot of planning that goes into this. There's a reason why the bidding process starts years ago. There's a reason why the announcement is made with such anticipation, is because there are a lot of things that have to
come together,
kind of line up. And to do that now in about 4 months, that's going to take a lot of moving. Not that it can't be done. And certainly, I think, again, the United States is probably the one country or one of the countries in the world that could easily get it fixed. But we'll see.
Victor, World Cups traditionally, historically, have been criticized for the conditions of workers building stadiums, for the conditions of the local population, and the disconnect between...
politics always finds a way into the conversation with the World Cup.
It does, and it will. And in Houston, I think that's also part of what I think is coming as we get a little bit closer. The infrastructure, there's construction, Victor, all over town. You know, most of us that are in Houston know that now there's all kinds of road work around the downtown area, around NRG. Yes, I imagine the county, Harris, and the city of Houston are trying to put on the best face possible. What does that mean for citizens, for residents, for people that live in Houston, that live in Harris County, and inconvenience? Those questions are raised about where the funds came from to do this, who benefits, how does it benefit? These are all valid questions, Victor, and I think as we get closer, there will be more interest also from non-soccer, traditional soccer journalists, or more mainstream will start asking questions, as they should, about parks,
About time. Join the party.
Sure. and is that I think that's a good thing. Transparency is important, especially when we're talking about public facilities, public right of ways, and at the end of the day, potentially taxpayer money going to fund this event coming here. Yes, that brings in revenue for the community.
Again, we saw it with Qatar and Russia and Brazil, and every World Cup is going to bring up these questions. And it's always, the coast country saving face a little bit, the beautifying projects. But I think it's sad that it takes the World Cup to get the city moving and doing some of these things. But I think ultimately, at least in our case, Houston, and then obviously Dallas is also the other Texas city hosting. I think these are the cities that benefit, and at least in the short term.
Lastly, Victor, when it comes to the World Cup and the huge attention that it will receive, the scrutiny. Up in Foxborough, for instance, the local community is yet to commit certain things until they know about the details. There will be stories, negative, positive. There'll be the haters. At the end of the day, I think this is a great opportunity for us to come together to experience something. Houston, I think, is unique because we have such diversity, Victor, because we're such an international city with oil and gas, with technology, with so many other industries that we know the sport. We love the sport. Actually, I think because of that, and you know this, Victor, there are groups that are not official, quote unquote, that are still trying to get behind the World Cup as an event and participate in some way. I don't pretend to know the details. I don't pretend to know the legality of what you can or can't say. It's like saying for the Super Bowl, hey, if you bet on the big game, exactly,
yeah.
It'll save you money and maybe you can get some free furniture. And you guys know what I'm talking about. That kind of thing. And there's no police going after people, right, Victor, and saying you can't use that logo. I've already seen all kinds of themed tournaments at the youth level, even at the adult level. Hey, it's our Mundialito. Hey, it's our World Cup. Some people even using the logo, Victor. But obviously, licensing is part of this process. Everyone wants to get in on it as much as possible. Does that help our sport? Because some of these are just bandwagon kind of fans, bandwagon kind of businesses that are creating a strategy to somehow benefit. That's the reality we live in, right?
I think it is good because, again, I think for many of us, the World Cup has been sort of the gateway into becoming a longtime soccer fan. I think each of us can point to a singular World Cup moment that probably made us lifelong fans.
Sure.
And for a lot of people, I mean, we've heard this being talked a lot. For a lot of people, this will be the World Cup that brings them into soccer for the first time or gets them interested, or it might even be, I think it will be an eye-opener. I don't think people, certainly in the United States, unless you're paying attention to soccer because whether your local leagues or you support a Premier League team or any other league in the world, MLS even, unless you have been supporting soccer, you probably don't know the worldwide attention that it has, the millions and millions that it moves. Again, I was looking at today, just they named the top 5 athletes with the most followers. So there was a list of the top 5 athletes with the most followers that are currently playing in North America. And I think 3 of the top 5 were soccer players. Messi, James Rodriguez, who just joined MLS, who we would have loved to have had in Houston. And then obviously I think LeBron James and Steph Curry were among the others. So that tells you, again, the reach, the worldwide reach. And we're just talking about singular players here. So, yeah, I think for a lot of people, they're going to realize that this is bigger than just, your local league. This is bigger than just maybe what they thought was, sort of the soccer mom culture. This is the biggest sport in the world, the most supported sport in the world.
Period.
And there's a reason why the NFL, the NBA, all these leagues are trying to go global, baseball, because they're trying to get a piece of the action. Because I think soccer is certainly moving fast in the United States. and that's really the last frontier that the world sport needed.
Victor, I used 2 years ago. You talk about World Cup moments, and I have many. All of us talk about the hand of God, Maradona scoring against
you
England.
watched the first one, and you watched since.
Yes, well, exactly. I've been there since the beginning. Mine, I think, was back when there was no soccer coverage, Victor, in the United States, and watching highlights from the '78 World Cup. Mario Kempes in Argentina, Paolo Rossi in '82 in Italy, winning that World Cup. A wide world of sports. I remember, Victor. You were probably still in diapers. I was in my third marriage with 6 kids, but that's beside the point. We all have those recollections that are ingrained, and to this day, I watch some of the World Cup movies, the official World Cup movies, and the highlights, which are fantastic, by the way, and it takes me back. It means something to me. Does it mean the same to everybody? I don't know. Where I'm going with this, Victor, is a lot of mainstream media, in covering our sport in general, and this may be a transition to the Dynamo and to MLS, they don't have that background. I'm not being critical of it. It's just difficult to talk about the World Cup when you maybe weren't, like I was in 1994 at the Cotton Bowl watching games, when you don't have the reference to highlights from '78, that people don't know about the World Cup history. It's something foreign to many mainstream. Now, that has changed, Victor, and I'm seeing soccer journalism improve. I found myself with you and with our crew at the MLS game, Dynamo Chicago, which we'll talk about here shortly. And, I was clearly, you can see it, friends, one of the veterans. But I'm excited that some of the younger generation, Victor, are knowledgeable. They are doing their homework. They have a reference point. And the World Cup means something. It's like anything else. If someone talked to me today about a rugby final in Europe, I would plead ignorance. I think the key, though, for covering it is, hey, be honest, own it. There's a lot of sports journalists in Houston, Victor, who don't have the background. So they either do two things, pretend or just completely avoid it. It's okay to have a conversation about this. And I've grown, I'm going to use this term, a lot more tolerant to say, look, let's help each other out. Traditional sports radio, Victor, doesn't cover the MLS. Traditional sports radio in the city doesn't know who the new Dynamo players are because they're focused on the Rockets, the Texans, and the Astros. I'll give you the last word, Victor, and then we'll talk a little MLS and the Dynamo.
Oh, you're right. And I think having the World Cup in town, even if it's for a month, it's going to force them to. It's kind of like when the Olympics come around and, they talk about the Olympics and having it in town and living it, breathing it in, right? Because of the 7 games that we're going to have here in the Bayou City. That's going to force some of those conversations. People, and I'm talking about their listenership, are going to be curious. They're going to ask questions,
sure.
and that's going to also force some of the conversation that way as well. So I welcome it. I hope it sheds the light and puts the spotlight on people being curious and asking, what's our soccer team? What's our closest soccer team? What's our league? How does it work? Who is the most recent champion? Why don't more people assist the games? What do we got to do? If soccer is this popular around the world, why isn't it as popular here? And these kinds of questions that just naturally come from people that, already bring their sports fandom from other sports and just apply it to soccer and to the local product with MLS and the NWSL.
Exactly. So I see this as a positive for the sport and certainly for the local teams. And Victor, let's get right into the local team conversation, if you will. And let's talk about the Dynamo opening up the MLS season versus Chicago Fire. Greg Berhalter, a solid attendance, Victor. And you can talk either about the product on the field or about the new era, as I call it, for the Houston Dynamo, Victor. New players that had an immediate impact on the field. But your take on what we saw this past Saturday at Shell Energy Stadium.
Yeah, certainly a bit of a change. We saw them in preseason, what I call a line of 5. Obviously, they have the 2 the three central defenders and then the two guys on the outside, which obviously saw a change last minute with Griffin Dorsey getting traded to Orlando, and Dwayne Holmes had to step in here.
He played well. He played well, Victor.
He played okay. Obviously, the first goal. No, look, the first goal comes through there. So obviously, there's still some stuff right here. There's still some stuff that they got to figure out. The first half certainly is the one that's going to be forgettable for the team. But to their credit, they adjusted. We'll see here, how they turn this game around in the second half. And, we had spoken at the last preseason game, and I believe it's all around our social media. You can find that analysis, and if you want to go back and see some of that stuff, where I would have liked to seen them come out this first game and put a stamp on this game,
sure.
Put a stamp of authority, come out with the 3 points. I wasn't buying the big hype with this Chicago team. I'm sure they're going to be, good throughout the season. I think they can make the playoffs with Greg Berhalter as their coach, but I don't think they're this, big giant in MLS. I think there's a few contenders, and everybody else is sort of, kind of in the same group, if I can put it. I think there's a couple, Miami, LAFC. You can probably include Vancouver, Seattle, and another team from the East. And then I think everybody else is sort of has an open book there of what they can do this season. You see it here, Guilherme, one of the signings. It took a lot of flack because I believe there was a video in preseason also going around of all his misses. That happens, by the way, when you have a player coming from Brazil, and there's probably a lot of Brazilian fans, somebody that can put that video together. You don't get that with some of these other leagues. And listen, I wouldn't question that might be something that this player saw, and it motivated him to come out and give a good first impression this season. Certainly looks the part. Obviously had a good showing here. I'm wondering how it's going to continue as the season goes on, because I think you've seen teams start to adjust when they start to see, okay,
sure,
this is the guy we got to watch out for on this team. And obviously Bogus is one of those. You see him here hit the post. Ezequiel Ponce obviously has to find a way to score more goals, although he did have some involvement here, which I think people have to also kind of take that into account so they don't just trash him completely for not scoring. And look, I like this front three, experienced guys with quality. Again, we'll see how they all comes together. But the biggest thing is, and it was never going to be perfect because it's the first game of the season, but they had to come out here and start off on the right foot. It's as simple as that. Send a message that this was going to be 3 points. This is a different season. Everything else can be remedied as it goes on. That includes the attendance in the crowd.
20,254. That's not too bad, Victor.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I'll question it.
I think it's always fair to say, what is it? Paid attendance. Who I'd like to
tickets
ask,
distributed.
I'd like to ask the person who officially does the count one day, hey, how do you get there? I think that we'll do a little homework on that, Victor, and maybe find that person who's counting the tickets and making sure that all the money
I don't
goes
think they're going to be
the right
able to
place.
turnstile.
Okay.
No, but look, I say this in the context of, and I'm gonna probably sound old to some of these people, but this used to be an automatic sellout at the beginning of the season for the Dynamo.
Yeah.
And I think that should always be the standard. There's hope to a start of a new season. And I think, again, because it's the first one of the year, traditionally it got people out there, and it's not like it's a gigantic statement. I mean, 21,000, I believe, is the capacity. It might have changed a little lower. But I saw some empty seats on the night. I want to see this place packed. I want to see standing room only. I don't think it's
and this
I don't think that's too much to ask.
No, and this victory helps Victor without a doubt. I think there's and let's talk a little bit about we'll talk about Ben Olsen shortly and his role in all of this. But Victor, it's not only the product on the field, the new faces. Obviously, Guilherme Santos making an impact. He was selected for the MLS Team of the Week, and deservedly so, with 2 goals. An immediate impact. If you start counting his 3 previous goals against New York Red Bull in preseason, that's 5 in 2 games. Can you keep up that kind of pace? It's not going to be easy. I hope so.
Well, that's the question. Yeah.
Right. That's one of the questions. But let's talk about things maybe outside the field, Victor. We recently, and we ran during the halftime of our English language broadcast, ran an interview with Wade Barrett. But let's talk about not only on the field but off the field. Wade Barrett coming in. He's a Dynamo legend, Victor. These are the additions that the organization is bringing in, changing things. Not only the amenities at the stadium, better food, better suites, a better experience, but people, investment in people. I think that goes a long way as well.
Absolutely. I agree. I think it's just common sense. It should be what the club does. And I mean, again, I think this is real community involvement when you make these type of moves.
Yeah.
Why it took so long, I don't know. I'm glad it's finally getting done. And I think these are all things we've mentioned on this podcast and previous shows. It's all things we've questioned ourselves. Why isn't it happening? Why is Wade Barrett in town and wasn't a part of the organization, right? Especially when he was still involved in soccer, with the Soccer Shots program with youth. It wasn't. I believe it's not like a competitive league. It's more really like a recreational program.
It's a foundational piece for young kids.
And it's right down the street from the Dynamo. It's right there downtown. When you make the turn there to kind of go up to navigation. So, again, Bonnie Garcia, we saw going into the academy. So, that's one. And again, the college ticket, the more affordable ticket. I like the 713. I don't know if it was just not feasible for them and they have to charge $25 a ticket, but they're talking about at least making it accessible. It comes with some credits for food and drinks. Again, I'm all about them getting more people in the building. There was an influencer that brought like about 100 kids. And so that was a big group that all had orange jerseys. And again, these are all things that we've talked about. Open the doors to the city, to your neighboring community, especially there. You're right off the East End. There's a lot of people there that love soccer. I just wish some of these things, just let people see the sellout, right? You don't have to announce it, especially because, again, supporters section, they announce it sold out. When you go to the game, then you're like, well, where's everybody? Why is there a couple, there's some space there empty. Those are the little things. I'm sure we'll get to the young man that got the homegrown contract. We've talked about it, just the messaging, right? Why does it immediately have to be gloating about, youngest signing ever, proof of the pipeline, and you just kind of, try to go at all these things?
Well, Victor, I think it's fair to look. This is a competitive sports market. I'm not defending or criticizing the messaging. We talked about this earlier. Maybe to a non-soccer sports fan in Houston, they don't know what the academy means. They don't know that they don't know what homegrown. Obviously, homegrown, it speaks for itself. But how does that process work? Out of the thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of children playing soccer in Texas, how does one get through that path? I think it's okay for the organization to toot their horn. You're educated, Victor. You know about the sport. You know the intricacies of it. Many people don't. And that's the kind of fan, and the traditional soccer fan, that I think one day the organization wants coming to Shell, maybe every day, every time there's a game. So I think it's important to tout and talk about those things. As you know, Victor, in the run-up to the start of the season, against Chicago, there were a lot of releases. What's interesting here, Victor, and you and I have talked about this, MLS soccer in Houston is still not at the level of Major League Baseball, of NBA basketball, of NFL football. Look at the media, Victor, and we've talked about this on this podcast. The media attention, we're literally in what's preseason, spring training for Major League Baseball. You've got outlets that go there for weeks and are reporting on games that are meaningless, in my opinion. Preseason games, hey, look, the guy threw 33 miles an hour today, but he's going to throw 50 miles an hour tomorrow. Baseball people are going to get mad at me about that comment. There's not that kind of coverage. So maybe the organization, Victor, has to do more to toot its own horn. We have to elevate the sport because others maybe aren't used to that.
Well, but see, when you toot your horn too much, I think it can be overwhelming. It can be seen as over marketing.
Sure.
And, again, I think it can sometimes be seen, and I'm just saying, this is what's happened before, so learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can choose to learn from it or not. I'm just, again, we're offering here free advice. It's not we're getting, and certainly they're applying some of it. And I'm, like I said, I'm glad that they are, because ultimately, we're not here to talk down on them. We're not here to talk negatively about them as much as they may think or they might think sometimes. We're here because we want to grow the sport. We want to see it be big in Houston. Houston is a big-time soccer city in the United States. It's as good as any other market. I truly believe that. I'm from here. I was born and bred here, and I've seen it. I see soccer fields all over this city. There is no reason the Houston Dynamo should not be able to pack a 20,000-seat stadium, 21,000, whatever the capacity is. And they mentioned it themselves in the preseason video they put out, the hype video. 8 million people in the greater Houston area.
So why isn't it happening? I mean, look,
you got to win the people over. I think you got to go out and you win the people over. And I think you got to open yourself up to tell some of these stories, but also you got to let some of the authentic stories come out. It can't just be marketing. As much as I've, asked them to kind of amp up their marketing efforts, like you just said, it also has to be the mainstream coming in, telling the stories. We told them, or at least I'll say I told them, hey, you got to charter a plane, you got extra seats, put media on the plane. They did it for the Open Cup. They didn't take us, but it's fine. What I'm saying is,
we took our own charter. The Greyhound was awesome, Victor.
Yeah,
only 48 hours getting to Florida. That was fine. I'm kidding.
But again, I mean, there's numerous ideas that they can apply, like you said, to grow the sport, to get more of their story out there. I want to see them continue this push. I want to see them make these kinds of efforts year round. I don't want them to let their guard down. Yeah. I think that's what we've seen. Certainly that's what we saw last year, where they're, for whatever reason, I think it's evident it happened last year. And again, partly this is why you also need, a bit of a push from the media. Pat Onstad said it himself on Channel 11. Matt Doyle, what he said in the offseason, maybe that pushed him to get a couple of signings. It's on record, and it's because it's natural that it would.
But Victor, then what we are saying in many ways is that the organization is listening. Whether it's us or somebody else, they're listening. And sometimes these things take time, Victor. There are many people that maybe don't have the background of Houston soccer. And by the way, this is a strange soccer city.
That's on them.
Well, yeah, but I'm not defending someone that isn't from Houston or knows Houston soccer. But Victor, I've been here since 1987. And this is a long time ago, friends. Yeah, that was last century. I'm doing the counting. I mean, I don't want to do the counting, Victor. But this is a very strange city. I've been around the youth sport for many years, 15 years with the club, SG1, for full transparency. And this is a strange, uber competitive market when it comes to the sport, Victor, where everybody has their fiefdom and everybody's right. Everybody has their own way to do this. If it's Latin American, South American, that's the style. If it's European with an accent, that's what's important.
So listen to everybody. Take a piece of everybody.
Well, but you can't. That's not
reality.
That's
community.
Victor.
That's community. If you want, you can't just shield yourself and say, well, I'm only going to listen to Chris Canetti because that's the only viewpoint I want.
It's a viewpoint. It's a viewpoint, sure.
Put a seat at the table for everybody that has a stake. Stakeholders, as we say, right, in this city, in this town.
Easier said than done, Victor. Easier said than done.
Well,
trust me.
But if you want it and you want to fight for it, and you can make an effort, and that's what I've always said for years. And I think again, be authentic. The best you can do is try, and you can't force people, but you can try. You can try. You can extend the olive branch, and again, we've seen some moves now. I hope they continue. I hope it just continues in an ascent. It goes in an up arrow, and I hope they don't get comfortable. That's all I'm talking about.
The effort has been there. Look, if there's one person that I've dealt with from the beginning when he arrived was Pat Onstead, Victor, and to me, he has been consistently transparent, consistently honest, and consistently aware of the deficiencies. That said, I think in fairness, we also have to be consistent in praising when necessary and criticizing. Victor, we know that the sports media, we're not asking difficult questions. We, as too many people, a few of us, and us, I mean by you and others, ask the questions that would be expected, first of all, in other markets like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, when it comes to sports in general. And the soccer media everywhere else in the world, Victor, is demanding day to day of everything, scrutinizing every detail, scrutinizing performance, scrutinizing decisions. That's not the level of soccer, calcio, football that we have. And now it's because also we're not as sophisticated and have the history and the coverage. Victor, let's be honest. I don't know if someone can make a living full-time covering soccer only. There's very few people that can get away with that. So, yeah, the attention has to go elsewhere because culturally there is so much competition. So I feel that the organization is headed in the right direction. And for full transparency, this year, yes, I'm doing the English language. We've done Dash. We've done Spanish language broadcast. But I try to be objective, Victor, when it comes to these kind of things. Let me switch gears to add maybe to the conversation, Victor. This man, Ben Olsen, how you saw him, what you heard from him after the first match, and his involvement. You've talked about this, Victor, in the past. He has lamented that maybe he didn't have the materials to work with to be successful. I think he's got an upgrade this year.
Yeah, and it was, look, and fans noticed, some of the things that came out through the press conferences the day before the game, where, the owner said one thing about the Griffin Dorsey deal, and Ben Olsen seemed like, maybe he was outvoted in that decision, right?
Well, I think he was very clear about that. He was outvoted, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's...
Well, I mean, he said you win some, you lose some. I don't think he didn't flat out come and say I lost the vote, but I think we got the message. But because the message, at least last year, I think, and again, any other part of the world, Olsen would have probably been more scrutinized. And then, where are you at least, taking a couple extra points, at least making some tactical changes, what have you. At the end of the day, what I've said is because this organization has, expressed their support, especially from the beginning, the first press conference where they introduced Ben Olsen, this is going to be their guy. Mm-hmm. And of course they're going to support him. I mean, I think he was always going to survive last year. I always felt, because he is their guy, but at the same time, you got to give him something to work with. And obviously he's happy about this year. He's got some players to work with. Sure, he could always want more, especially when he looks around the league, right? And he sees some of the other signing. We're talking about Griezmann now coming to Orlando, or at least it's in the rumor mill. Obviously, LAFC is coming in here this week with Son and Bouanga, Messi and Miami and that whole thing over there. Muller in Vancouver. So, but look, I think everybody's agreed that Olsen now has a group that should at least make the playoffs, and we'll see what they can do as far as this season. They don't have to worry about the Leagues Cup. They don't have to worry about other competitions. I'd like to see them, again, because they got off on the right foot, try to put a couple of these games away early. And then why not talk about one of the higher spots and maybe even take a chance at a supporter shield and again, win more and more people over in this city. This is the year to do it. This is the year to go all in, if ever there was one. And I think every year is the year to go all in, but especially this year because of the World Cup
Sure.
and the extra public that you're going to have, the worldwide attention, the worldwide media, Alex, that's going to descend on Houston, Texas for these games and ask questions about, well, what's the local
Yeah.
team? What's the soccer vibe here? And have some of these stories. You're going to want to leave a great impression around the world. This is a global game. There's no reason why they couldn't be a more global team.
No, I agree with that. And look, why don't we shift gears, Victor, to a little bit of the. And by the way, you're being attacked there, Victor. So it's okay to be attacked. To the next opponent for the Houston Dynamo, which is clearly going to be a tall order, LAFC, and we're watching a little bit of the opening match for both of these teams at the LA Coliseum in Los Angeles, 75,000 people, and the defending MLS champion, the defending team, Miami, with Inter Miami with Messi. And we all now know the score, 0-3 or 3-0 for LAFC. And that's the team that's coming into town. Victor was talking about the expectation right now of what this could be as far as not only a sellout, not only those that follow LAFC and its star power and its quality, but arguably now and very early in the season, friends, you can make a very clear argument that Houston, this coming weekend, will be facing literally the best team in Major League Soccer with LAFC. So why not get behind it? Why not be there? Again, another opportunity. Still early on also. Some of those that may have a conversation or a doubt about the weather, this is still a great opportunity to get out there and support. And it will be a test. I think it'll be a test, friends, not only on the field, which I think may be critical and will really set the bar about where Houston is early on, but it's going to be a test for the organization in promoting the match this week, number one, and also promoting the continuation of this new era. We've talked about the new era with new players, Guilherme Santos, Guilherme, however you prefer. There's different ways, but we know what he's certainly shining early on in the season. Victor, it's not just about what's going to be happening on the field, but LAFC is a big team. This is a great opportunity, and the word I use is a test for the organization to measure where the team is, and maybe more than that, which is the fan support in this World Cup year.
Yeah, look, again, LAFC 75,000, and I know this was the Messi game, and they moved it over to the Coliseum, but if this isn't proof that soccer is lived and breathed in America. And I mean, Seattle, I think, had about 30,000 people as well. Again, I hope this is a good omen for this year, what it's going to be with the World Cup. We talked about it post-game in our analysis. This is going to be a good early test for Houston at home. I hope, that they go for it. And I think LAFC is going to force them to go for it just because of the way the team is. Even if it's a losing effort, that it's a valiant effort that wins people over, right? With the style of play, with the character to attack, and it's not going to be an easy match with some of these guys. Son, Wanga, and even Ordaz came off the bench and scored a goal. But again, this is your competition in the West, and let's see what they show us on Saturday.
So Victor, let's add another layer here as we kind of summarize the different pieces that are coming together for the Dynamo. The first game against Chicago, the 3 points. Wade Barrett, people that are bringing in players like Guilherme that you're seeing now on screen. He was actually a little bit late, Victor, to the press conference because he was still on the field signing autographs. He was still taking in his debut, his regular season debut with the team. A lot of these things are coming together. And it is a new era. I really wanted to maybe start with that and end with that piece, which is we are seeing a new era. Can you reflect, though, and it's still very early, Victor, on what I sensed was a sense of excitement. It was palpable. Yes, my role different, and we'll talk about that shortly. Instead of watching as a sports journalist, so-called sports journalist, the game, doing the English language. I've done Spanish, and we've done TV, and we've done this many ways. I sense something different, Victor. I sense some excitement that was previously not there. Was it just my imagination? Was it wishful thinking? Did you feel something different? And I know we're talking about feelings here. You can't quantify it. It's not a number of attendance, 2254, that you can debate. It's not a final score. It's a feeling based on your experience, Victor, and reflecting on previous years.
Well, it is a new stage. We could call it a new era because of the turnover now, right? It's not the same group, and even Herrera, who's back, he's in a different role. He didn't even play in this game.
We barely talked about him, by the way, on this podcast today, Victor. He didn't participate, yeah.
And, I guess we'll see. We didn't want to go too deep into some of these signings because we still had to see what they brought to the table, right? I think they have the credentials. Nobody was questioning that. We were just wondering, and we wouldn't be able to know until we saw them on the field. Again, what could they bring? Because we've seen players in the past, and I'm just not talking about Houston, I'm talking about MLS, that just come here for the lifestyle or just come here to earn a check. I mean, it's a reality of sports.
Sure.
So it's not, not attacking anybody. So we were waiting to see what was going to happen with some of these players. Obviously, Guilherme, right out of the gate, looks great.
Yeah, he does.
He seems like he's going to come good. And obviously the link to Neymar there, the celebration, that's, something that could obviously bring them some more fans if it's marketed the right way, I think. And again, also for players like this, it is attractive to come to this league. It is attractive to have a lifestyle where, like you said, you can engage with some of the fans, maybe in a healthier way than you would in Brazil, because it is a different culture. The fact that they could probably walk the street and just be normal humans. I think that's all appealing, and that could even be give a player more focus, right? Especially for the ones, some could get comfortable, but I think for some, that could be, a bit of a sigh of relief. And again, we'll see what it means if they can put this kind of showings consistently. I'm sure Guilherme is going to get more attention from MLS defenders, but there are some good things there. Halter looks the part too. I think again, it's all getting adjusted and working together and gelling. Jack McGlynn looks good coming back from injury as well. Bogusz, we're waiting for him to get on, on the scoring sheet, but I think we know his quality, and we're hoping Ponce can kind of get it together there, and that this cloud of him not scoring sort of moves away. But it is a bit of a different team, and maybe that's why it feels different and new. And
did you feel it though, Victor? Did you feel some more positive than negative? I'm going to put you on the spot. Is this a potential really good start for this organization? And let me add one more piece before you answer that. The youth piece. You talked earlier about Matthew Arana, a homegrown player, played with the Rice Soccer Club locally. He was just signed, and I want to make sure I get this right. 15 years, 5 months, 24 days at the moment of signing. The youngest first-team signing in club history, the 20th academy product to sign as a homegrown player for the first team. I want to make sure we get all of that right. This, again, is another good signing. Again, Victor, touting, and Ben Olsen was asked about this and talked about this. This guy's the real deal. They have to be careful with him. He's still young. We don't want another Freddie Adu type story coming out of this young man's potential career. But this, again, is another sign of the different pieces coming together. Maybe that's what I wanted to discuss today as I see all these different elements, Victor. And we'll talk a little bit more about the opportunities also that have been given to on the broadcasting side. But aside from that, I see things headed in the right direction, quote unquote, right?
Yeah, well, to go back to your question, yeah, I think, it is more positive. And I think, again, a lot of that is the drop off from last year. And, the fact that they look like they're not going to struggle as much this year. They had a comeback victory. That was a good reaction to being down 1-0.
Sure.
All these new faces we just mentioned. Hopefully here, hopefully it is a good sign that the academy system is starting to head in the right direction as well. I don't want to hype up the kid because he's, again, they're saying youngest ever signing, proof of the pipeline. I would pump the brakes on some of this stuff, right? Because I think don't put a lot of pressure on this kid. We've seen it happen to many young men that the Dynamo has used just for marketing purposes and to say, look, it's and again, this is going back years, but that's what I don't want to see. And it happens all across soccer. It's just not just the Dynamo, but that's what I don't want to see. I want to see them protect this kid. I want to see them bring him up right. I want to see him give him the proper opportunity when he's ready. And I hope that happens. And I hope he becomes a shining example for other academy products and for other aspiring players in Houston that, listen, the dream can come true here in Houston, Texas. And hopefully this young man will be proof of that.
I believe so, Victor, and I believe that the intentions are correct. But how many times has a young player been signed and the timing wasn't right? Either they didn't want it, they became homesick, they weren't up to the level, they weren't patient.
And these are all things that come with signing a young player. These are all things that happens in the professional game. I mean, we see it all across the world. I mean, the tales are endless. Young players get a little bit of money, and sometimes their focus may not be as much or it turns away from the game, and that's where they gotta steer this young man in the right direction, help him along, because it's not as easy as giving a kid a contract and that's it. He's responsible for himself. No, I wish there is again all the right intentions. And again, hopefully it turns into a great story to be told.
The team signed a young man, and they also offered an old man a different position, Victor, when it comes to the broadcast side. And I've been blessed to be around the sport. And I talked about this in the English language official broadcasts, by the way, and not different for me relative to presenting the sport, Victor, but I was very pleasantly surprised. And just so you know, this really was something that I was not expecting. I'm very respectful and grateful to what came prior, which is Glenn Davis, who's been doing this since the inception of the team, 2 decades. There is no comparison of anyone coming after. And in this case, it's Alex Parra, for better or worse. But Victor, one of the questions I would have had, whether it's me or someone else, objectively, is, hey, is this the right move for the organization? And I'm going to put you on the spot. I consider you a friend, a colleague, but I also consider you knowledgeable. Is this a good move? And you may.
Well, they got no choice now.
You may offend me, but
they might have been able to do a little better.
Oh, I'm sure about that, Victor. I'm sure they could have done much better.
I think given the circumstances, and I'll start with that. And part of the reason why I have a bit of not difficulty, but not fully buying into all the positivity is because of the way things ended with Glenn Davis and the way that situation. I think if there was time for a change, it's fine. I think we all wish for more transparency, or just again, things falling a different way, in an honorable way, not just what happened. I think it's awkward for you or anybody else that would have taken the position. I think it's awkward for some of the fans that want to support the team, are going to support the team. but we're a bit torn again. And because we go back to it, this is our soccer community. Glenn's one of our own.
He
And,
is.
today it's Glenn, tomorrow it could be one of us. And I think that's sort of the feeling that I have with this. And that's it. I think just that a little bit more, just a different way things would have turned out. But that said, I think I wasn't expecting it either because, again, I think it is a little different from what the organization has done, certainly in several years. I wasn't expecting them to stick with somebody local or part of the local soccer scene. I think from that aspect, we got to, well, I'll say it again, maybe from the outside looking in. I think from that, because it really is the way I feel, I think from that sense we got a little bit lucky that we got, this direction. And because I know you, because I know how you will take the position and see it as a privilege and a responsibility, be a connection, be a voice for not just the Dynamo, but for Houston.
Sure.
And, that's why I think given all circumstances, this is probably the best turnout that could have happened. And it's not lost on me all the years that you've had as a broadcaster in this town, as a champion for the Hispanic journalist, the Hispanic commentator, because I think that also has to be brought up. Deportes Nation, but I was looking it up as well, from what used to be Deportes America radio.
A long time ago, Victor Araiza. Long time ago.
The work you've done with Enrique Vasquez, the work you've done going back to the Houston Rockets, the stories you'll be able to tell just from the point of understanding some of the players that speak Spanish. I think even the Portuguese ones, because the Spanish sort of coincides a little more with that language. And again, everything they've said as far as, bringing energy to the broadcast, I agree. I say it here publicly because my thoughts. And obviously, I wish you nothing but good. I think, the broadcast will only continue to get better because, again, it just continues to build. I say this again, go on the ascent. So best of the luck this season. I think there was a good start with the first game. And listen, it is part. You are now part of Houston Dynamo history, and I think that's I do consider that a privilege. I think for a lot of people that want to see this club grow and succeed, and I couldn't be happy for you,
Victor. I appreciate your words, and you've earned those $20. You followed the script perfectly. So thank you. Well done. I was worried you weren't reading everything.
For $19.99.
Yeah, I was worried you wouldn't be able to read everything I wrote for you, but I really appreciate that. Victor, there are so many ways to look at this. I see this not as something for me personally, but maybe, yes, as I reflect a little bit, something for our community. There's so many of us, Victor, like yourself, that are multilingual, that are multicultural. It is Houston. I tell the story, Victor, years ago with the Houston Rockets, not in a negative way, but in a reality way, that Adrian Chavarria and I, doing the Spanish language broadcast for the Houston Rockets, we talked to one of the front office people about compensation, and there was a huge discrepancy between the English and us. Not appreciating it, and also understanding the economic realities of not being able to sell it because no one in the organization spoke Spanish, right? But me turning to them, not in an arrogant way, and maybe that's the way it was taken, saying, what's interesting, Mr. Executive, is that today you could put Adrian and I to do the English language, and I think we do a pretty good job. But you take your English broadcasters, by the way, gentlemen who deserved and have done amazing work, nothing against them. You can't even ask them to do our job. So we have the potential, the ability to do 2 broadcasts in 2 languages, and we're being paid astronomically less than they are. Think about what that means. Think about what that means also for the future and this career. And it's not about the compensation. It was about the point, Victor, that this happening 20 years ago. I think now it's changing where there are more opportunities. And I'm going to take it as that. Not for Alex Parra, I've been blessed in my life, Victor, but for the next generation. That one day a Latino, a Latina, or someone multilingual will be able to helm an English language broadcast and bring something different. Nothing against Glenn. His reference, Victor, his experience, his approach, his style, second to none. And I can't compare myself to that. I have to be who I am for better or worse. And all I can hope for is that I'm given the opportunity, and also, like anything else, Victor, that I'm put to the test to say, listen, you have to improve. You have to do this better. There are certain things that we want. And this is entertainment, Victor. This isn't the end of the world. We're not curing an illness here. This should be fun, and that's my approach. So I wanted to kind of get that out of the way. We won't talk much about me and it, even though I have a big ego, friends, some of you that know me, but it's about really what comes next. So I want to hear from you. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't, do you tune it in? Would you not tune it in? And Victor, I'll give you the last.
Know?
Yeah, exactly. Do you even know we're on the air? What's going on with it? But Victor, I see this as opportunity. I genuinely do. And just so you know, I don't know what may or may not have happened with Glenn and the organization. What I do know is this, that we've been very clear about my opportunity. We've been very clear about the path that we want to take. And yes, the organization is looking for something different. And Victor, I think these opportunities come once in a lifetime. They're unexpected. If there's any advice that I would give to a young person, Victor, would be, you know what? Be prepared for those opportunities. They're not going to be perfect. They're not going to be when you want them and you've scheduled them, but put yourself in a situation for that to happen. So I'm grateful. I really am, Victor. And I'm also excited about this season and what the Houston Dynamo can accomplish. Victor, wrap up the Dynamo quickly, and we'll talk a little bit about the Dash and maybe prepare for what's coming up this weekend. But overall, your impressions as we start the 21st year of Houston Dynamo FC soccer.
Yeah, good first start. I think certainly a good beginning point. Look, now LAFC comes to town. Both of these teams have won. I think it sets it up beautifully for a good test early in the season and a good spectacle. And I hope that's what we get on Saturday. And I hope to see that place filled up. I think this is has all the makings of it. And again, hopefully it's electric Saturday night and we see a great game.
We hope so. Let's transition quickly to the Dash. Victor, the Dash, we're wrapping up in the Palm Springs area. A beautiful time of year, beautiful weather out in California for preseason. Fabrice Gautreau and the rest of his team, which also is changing, and we'll talk about that. Coming home now, some interesting matches. One of them this weekend at the Cotton Bowl, Victor, against the professional women's team, Trinity, in Dallas.
Yeah, a game we had here, I think, restricted, maybe to season ticket holders. I would have loved to have seen that been open to the public at Shell. Good for Dallas Trinity and having that game, hosting it. It might be the only opportunity to be able to get these two teams from both of these leagues on the schedule. And listen, the campaign this year for the Houston Dash is prove it. And I think that's exactly what they got to do. They got to go out there and make the playoffs. They got to go out there and try to shoot for an NWSL championship. And so I think that's the logical next step here for Fabrice Gautreau, who had his first season. I think it was a valiant effort there to make the playoffs. Maybe they came a little bit short, but now here in this second year, I think that has to be the expectation. And the Dash, again, and I hope they get the support as well. I hope they get the backing, the investment to where it, and hopefully the media coverage as well, get treated like any professional sports teams would. Ask the questions, demand, when the results aren't there, and we'll see if they can prove it this year.
And they'll wrap up preseason, if I'm not mistaken, against the University of Texas, women's team early March, the 7th, if I'm not mistaken. And as we get closer to the start of that season, obviously we'll talk a little bit more about that. But definitely, again, and if we're, again, talking about the entire picture here, you alluded to it a little bit, Victor, this team potentially for sale. Does that change anything? What they have to do on the field regardless? And that could be a story brewing also in this World Cup year. The support for women's soccer, the support for that aspect of it and the growth of it. So interesting. No, we'll obviously be there to support the Dash when the season starts, and we'll be reporting and passing on our thoughts about the Dash and the NWSL. Victor, it's time for us to head out, but let's wrap up with whatever may be on your mind as we wrap up another edition of the Soccer Tejas Podcast.
Yeah, look, I'll start with some of the hope that media coverage in the sport gets better. The hope that we get more hands on deck with the World Cup being here. We get more of the mainstream helping to tell these stories and asking questions and diving into the sport a little bit more. It's the most popular sport in the world, and I think we're a little bit late to the party here in the United States. Certainly in Houston. And I think that's going to be the big eye opener this year with the World Cup coming to town and coming to the United States, to North America. So that's kind of my wish for this year, that we get a little bit more coverage, because I think even us as those in the media, I think we sort of need that competition as well to fuel us to be better versions of ourselves.
Better versions of ourselves. I like that, Victor. And it's about that challenge. I agree with you. The traditional soccer media has been following the sport at the MLS level, at the NWSL level, but we'll see if maybe others. And look, Victor, I'm also very conscious of a new generation that are hopefully enjoying this, and that have the passion and have the education and background, and hopefully can get that experience. Victor, before we go, I'll give you my take of what's on my mind here as we wrap up another edition of the Soccer Tejas Podcast. And I want to be basically thankful, and I am thankful to all of you that behind the scenes and in messages, and after this first English language broadcast with the Houston Dynamo, came to me and privately thanked me. They were proud of me and supportive of me. And you know what? I see this less about me at the end of the day. And yes, if you know me, you know I've got the ego. Who doesn't? Who's in front of the cameras this way? But my hope is this, that this, whether it lasts a year or beyond, or maybe 6 months, depending on whether I do a good job or a bad job, is the energy that I sense and how we can come together. At the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, this is about entertainment. Whether it's English or Spanish, it's the passion, it's the love. It's that for 2 hours we can come together and enjoy each other's company around this sport. It happens to be the Houston Dynamo, but it's a World Cup year, friends. And we know the passion, we know the emotion. It's something we look forward to. Many of us during World Cup years, literally our schedule is based around the games, whether it's at times that are convenient or not. That's what makes it so special. That's what makes it so unique. And in this new role, I'm grateful. I'm happy about the experience. I also want you to know that I'm not maybe a traditional sportscaster in that way. A traditional way of presenting the game may not be what I give you, but what I will give you is every bit of my energy and every bit of my passion. And hopefully it's something we can enjoy together. So I really thank all of you that took the time to reach out, then continue to reach out. That energizes me, not for me. And like I said this, I won't be here in 50 years, but I hope that the next generation can take this and make it even better, make it even more passionate, make it even more entertaining, and certainly us revolving around the Houston Dynamo, I think is an important piece of anybody that pretends, that purports, that wants to be part of soccer culture. So there you have it, my take as we wrap up the latest edition of the Soccer Tejas Podcast. Victor, we got to go, but what else would you like to mention before we say adios?
Well, we're obviously going to keep an eye on all these stories we talked about today. The World Cup certainly, and obviously our thoughts are that everything in Mexico sorts out and only gets better.
We hope so. Victor, it's better when you're with us, so we appreciate you being with us. Friends, also, thanks to all of our production staff that make this possible, that are tolerant, that are helping us with the technical snafus that we sometimes have. Hopefully no snafus with this one. And at the end of the day, friends, thank you for taking the time to be with us, for listening to us. We may not always agree, but I hope that you know that we do it in a respectful way and in a way that I think is constructive to the conversation. And I hope you really get that at the end of the day. So on behalf of our production staff, on behalf of Mr. Victor Araiza, I'm Alex Parra. Thank you for following us. And until next time when we meet here, we call this space the Soccer Tejas Podcast.